All right, welcome to Frontline. 6 o'clock here on the East Coast, and the government has been shut down for about 152 hours. I'm still doing okay. We begin tonight, though, with some fresh news out of the White House, where President Trump met with Canada's Prime Minister and dropped a bomb on Democrat leadership.
I'm getting calls from Democrats wanting to meet. I never even heard their names before, and they're claiming to be leaders. The Democrats have no leader. They remind me of Somalia.
Also, War Secretary Pete Hegseth was at Naval Station Oceana today in Virginia Beach, touting the historic surge in military recruitment.
A year ago, we couldn't get folks to serve. Today, we barely have enough throughput and basic training to deal with the amount of Americans that want to stand up and serve. It is historic.
And in Chicago, the people arrested for boxing in ICE agents, leading to one of them being shot, were released, the judge saying neither pose a flight risk and are free pending a trial. We're going to have more on that later in the hour. But first, did Joe Biden order the CIA to stand down on a briefing as VP that might have incriminated his family? Maybe. Let's do this. This is unreal. Remember when they impeached Donald Trump for asking if there was any corruption regarding Joe Biden in Ukraine? Well, today we come to find out that the reason the left went absolutely ballistic about that, to such an extent to impeach him over it, was in fact because it appears that Donald Trump was onto something and hovering right above the target. That Joe Biden did in fact appear to withhold aid in exchange for Hunter's corporate advancement in Ukraine. And the Dems had to do whatever they could to discredit Trump so he could not have that come out. Now, we're finding out today that Biden's then National Security Advisor, Dr. Colin Kahl, appears to have scrubbed any mention of Ukrainian corruption from Obama's presidential daily briefing and to keep it under wraps. This is huge. This bewildered basically all the intel analysts at the time, by the way, because we're now seeing emails that they were super concerned about Biden's involvement over there. By the way, Colin Kahl was then rewarded with Undersecretary of Defense when Biden took office in 2020. Look, everybody with half a brain, and I'm just recapping this for most people. You guys probably know most of this stuff, but just put it all in one place for you. Most people knew what was going on, and yet we were told, no, Hunter and his $1 million salary in Ukraine, it's all above board. But everybody knew this was corruption based on Joe Biden saying what he did himself, exactly what the Democrats tried to make the case that he didn't do.
If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Oh, son of a got fired.
Fired the prosecutor, who just happened to be the one investigating Burisma, the company that Hunter Biden went on to get a significant payment to sit on the board of. Let me say that again. Joe Biden, as vice president then, threatened to withhold U.S. foreign aid to Ukraine unless they fired a prosecutor looking into corruption at a company that Hunter Biden, the son of the man demanding they fired the prosecutor, sat on the board of. And then, even worse, Joe Biden had that scrubbed from the CIA memo to brief Barack Obama. The fact that Joe Biden was so arrogant, too, and he bragged about this is one thing, but the Democrats also knew that when Trump was in control, as he was at the time of this phone call with Volodymyr Zelensky in September 2019, that he could, Trump as president, could direct his Justice Department to open an investigation into whether or not Joe Biden used his position to leverage his son's business ventures. You know, get 10% for the big guy, which it looks like he did in China, too, by the way, because Hunter Biden, let's be honest here, no background in anything productive. I mean, he was a lawyer, but I don't think he ever argued a case. But he had no background in private equity, like the $2 billion China deal, where he just collected bags of cash on Air Force Two, or natural gas. Didn't know anything about that. So that was the Ukrainian Burisma company that he was on the board of. So the fact that he was even on the board is super suspect from the beginning, which goes even further as to why Joe Biden, if you recall, asked, and I want to know why did he ask then President Barack Obama to make him, quote, the point man to Ukraine? Was this why? Now, the left knew there was some cattywampus afoot here in their candidate, that they needed to block any ability for the current Trump administration, Trump 1, to look further into this. So they made hay with some garbage impeachment trial, which Trump was acquitted by the Senate, by the way, because the whole impeachment was based solely on the phone call with Zelensky, because two instances here. One, Trump apparently disregarded the advice of Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vindman, remember that guy, which had all the deep state intel people like clutching their pearls. How could the president not listen to the expert? Because he's an Ant-Man and it's the commander-in-chief and president can do whatever he wants. But mainly, this impeachment was based on whether or not he asked about a quid pro quo for foreign aid in Ukraine from when Joe Biden was vice president, which we now know seemed to be the case. That was the ridiculous and non-evidence they used to impeach Donald Trump. What Trump was asking was, did Biden do anything inappropriate? That's not a campaign thing. It's a national security thing. And he was well within his rights as president to ask that. And the party line impeachment ensued to make the case so Trump could have no say, so basically had to recuse himself, to the Justice Department to have any proceedings to look into Joe Biden. Then Deep State Bill Barr, a operative that the Deep State loved at the point. We didn't know that at the time, but he used this as cover to just ignore this whole pile of evidence that was, I would say, at least warranted an investigation to protect an already deeply flawed and aging then candidate for president, Joe Biden, in the 2020 election. And today, almost 6 years later, we find out that Joe Biden, as vice president, appears to have squashed the CIA from releasing this damning information just so he could protect his own hide on something the Democrats swore he didn't do. God, if I seem angry, I am. The same intel communities and law enforcement agencies that literally struck CIA intel from a presidential briefing to protect Joe Biden. We also know that the same deep state also surveilled Republican lawmakers. That came out yesterday, post January 6th.
We learned that former FBI secretly investigated you and your colleagues. Why? They wanted to take President Trump off the playing field. They were playing politics with law enforcement powers and will go down as a historic betrayal of public trust. This is the kind of conduct that shatters the American people's faith in our law enforcement system.
That's the understatement of the year, Pam. Maybe throw some people in jail for it. Jack Smythe. This guy was a disgraced special prosecutor, essentially wiretapped and geolocated 8 U.S. senators and a congressman as part of his investigation into January 6th, which, by the way, all that evidence was deleted, which is crazy to me, right? If it was such a lockstep case. I'm licking my chops at this one because, oh boy, we know politicians basically are useless unless it's an election season or it directly affects them. You impose something that directly affects any politician in any aspect of their life, they will move heaven and earth to destroy whatever it is that is threatening or imposing on them. And that's where Jack Smythe done messed up, because now these U.S. senators are not only mad about Trump being wrongfully impeached at a trial in which happened in the Senate and the Dem House narrowly impeached Trump, and then these senators had to sit through some sham trial about how bad Trump was in violating political norms, which he didn't. All the while, any communication they may have had in the years after that to vindicate Republicans for any number of things, including January 6th, were being monitored. Not only were the Democrats spying on the Republicans, which there's a pattern here. Trump's campaign was spied on. Democrats denied that. Not the first time, though. Obama spied on the Associated Press. Before that, Biden spied on Catholic churches, put parents on domestic terror watch lists. But now Jack Smythe, the guy who had his last conviction overturned by the Supreme Court over the Virginia governor case, now spying on senators. This is like Watergate times 10. When are we going to wake up? Nixon resigned over it, but he would have been impeached over it. He probably should have gone to jail for it if he actually did what they said. Look, I know a lot of politicians, and let me tell you, a lot of things they discuss in private are not meant for public eyes, both procedurally for official business and for campaign strategy, but also how many of these Republicans are having their staffers look through their phones for text messages they may have exchanged with the sitting rep to see if there's any political ammo that might leak. Because, Democrats would never leak, right? I mean, who knows what was said? Did they call a person a name, discuss compromising information about a colleague or a political enemy? Anything. And Jack Smythe just lit that fuse. And I hope this is a wake-up call, that Democrats will do whatever they want and Republicans need to smash this right now. You got to put an end to this or it will happen over and over and over and over again. Stop playing nice, Pam. Put some people in jail. Mike Davis, the founder and president of Article 3 Project. Mike, sure this annoys you about as much as I.
Well, I would say this. I know Pam Bondi, the Attorney General. I know her well, and she has already done a lot at the Justice Department in just a few short months to bring serious reforms, including firing a lot of people in Maine Justice, including firing a lot of people in the U.S. Attorney's offices around the country, including D.C., including firing a lot of FBI officials. I would say this: don't underestimate Pam Bondi.
I hope you're right.
She's tough as hell, and I promise your viewers that justice is coming.
I mean, from your lips to God's ears, my man, because I like Pam Bondi as a person. I supported her to get this role. I just don't feel it's moving fast enough, and I realize the legal world does not move that quickly, which is unfortunate. But in today's hearing with Attorney General Pam Bondi, Senator Josh Hawley called for a special counsel into the weaponization of Obama and Biden's Justice Department. Roll this.
I think we need to know exactly who approved the wiretaps on United States senators, who knew about it, what agents were involved at DOJ or the FBI. I think we need to know exactly who signed off on the Catholic memo, the spying memo, who was involved with it, how far did it go. I think we need to know exactly who authorized the prosecution of Mark Houck, who terrorized pro-lifers and tried to intimidate them. I think we need to know.
But also, on top of that, I would ask, who gave the orders to omit things from a presidential security briefing?
Yeah, those. Look, Josh Hawley is a friend. He's a former colleague when I clerked on the 10th Circuit. He's a warrior, and he's right. These need to be investigated, and guess what? They are going to be investigated. Remember this about Pam Bondi: she is winning historic, monumental wins in the Supreme Court for the presidency, Article 2 power of the President of the United States. She's won like 20 cases in a row. Mm-hmm. These investigations are going right now. We are just getting our U.S. attorneys confirmed, like Judge Jeanine Pirro in D.C., like Jason Redding Quinones, my friend down in the Southern District of Florida. I have said for 3 years that justice must be delivered. I've worked on this every day for 3 years. I'm going to work on this every day for the next 4 years. And I promise this very publicly that justice is coming. I'm going to make damn sure that happens.
Yeah. And Mike, I realize, I know you personally, you're a man of your word. You truly are. However, is there a timeline? Because this is the problem with most Republicans is we keep hearing this. And look, the judicial process is slow. I get that. I'm an impatient human being. Is there a timeline so we can just manage our expectations on when we might see some people in bracelets?
Well, that's a good question. I would just say, you notice down in the Southern District of Florida in the Fort Pierce division, the judge just approved the Trump Justice Department's impaneling of a new grand jury. That's Fort Pierce, Florida, where they did the Mar-a-Lago raid. Mm-hmm. That's where Judge Cannon sat. I think that would be a wonderful place to impanel a grand jury to look at conspiracy against rights under Section 241 to go after all this Democrat lawfare against Trump, his top aides, his allies, parents, and Christians.
Yeah. No, I'm hoping for all that stuff. I'm just, it's almost one of these things I'm looking for hope. I'm looking for hope that everybody says no one's going to be held accountable. Look, Hillary skated, Obama did all kinds of things, all these different things happen, and nobody's ever held accountable except for Republicans. And Trump, there were sham trials and victimless crimes that he paid millions for. Do you really think that something is actually someone's actually going to go to jail? Comey, someone.
Yes, I think a lot of them are going to be investigated. I think a lot of them will be indicted. I've said this very publicly for 3 years. I'm going to make that my mission for the next 4 years because this is unacceptable what these lawfare Democrats did. They took our country to the brink, and guess what? Pam Bondi is not Bill Barr. She's actually tough.
Yeah, and look, if you say she's going after it and you say things are going to happen, I take you at your word. I just, for the viewers, I'm just like everybody who watches the show, I just want some assurances that it's happening behind the scenes. So you seem to be giving me that. I appreciate it.
The justice is definitely coming. I promise you.
Mike Davis, it's the best news I've had all day. We appreciate it, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, coming up, it's 2A Tuesday, and the Chicago mayor is blaming Trump for Chicago's gun violence problem. Yeah, right, but ignores the tens of thousands of people that have been shot over the last decade in his city. But first, the government remains shut down. Layoffs. Let's do that. Those details next.
Just before Charlie Kirk died, he issued a stark warning of terrifying dangers ahead. Charlie wrote this in the foreword for the new book, Pagan Threat, by Pastor Lucas Miles. Charlie said that Pagan Threat could save America, and that you must read and share this book. A #1 Amazon bestseller, Pagan Threat is available everywhere. Get Pagan Threat free with Newsmax's special offer and save $30. Go online today and read Charlie's final words.
Hi, TV Genie.
What do you want?
I wish I could find my shows easier.
I wish my primetime TV was automatically recorded.
I wish I could record more.
Well, I can't do any of those things. So here, I swapped your outfits.
Switch to Dish. Get voice control, automatic primetime recording, and more recording power.
You're welcome.
Switching from DirecTV satellite to Dish can save you over $300 in your first year.
We should get Dish.
Hello, everyone. It's President Donald J. Trump, and it's Trump time. Check out this red beauty. It's one of my new watches. Wear it proudly on your wrist, and everyone will know exactly what it's for, who it represents. It's really going to be something special. It's for your favorite president. Get your watch today at gettrumpwatches.com. These make a great gift. It's Trump time.
It's everything. Feeling good is everything. I take Balance of Nature, I have been for a couple of years. I love it. I'm so happy with it. It is that good.
Fall Prime savings start today. Get 40% off your first order as a preferred customer while supplies last. Go to balanceofnature.com and use code FALLPRIME.
I think that everybody's still hopeful that when we get a fresh start at the beginning of the week that we can get the Democrats to see that it's just common sense to avoid layoffs like that, to avoid the $15 billion a week that the Council of Economic Advisors says will harm GDP if we have a shutdown.
Hey, I think we should let him off. National Economic Council Director Kevin Hassett saying that the shutdown is costing us $15 billion a week, according to an internal White House report. But these people didn't have a care in the world about shutting down the private sector during COVID, but now that it's them, they're freaking out. So respectfully, I disagree and say, fine, I don't care, fire them all. E.J. Antoni, Senior Research Fellow, Unleash Prosperity. All right. They shut down COVID. It was no big deal. Shut up, put your mask on. Who cares about your business? But now that the government shut down, they're whining like a bunch of girls.
That's exactly right, Carl. And if they keep this up long enough, they're just basically going to give the president everything he wants. It's part of the irony of this situation. We'll eventually reach a threshold where the president actually has more authority, believe it or not, to fire these folks, to let these different federal workers go. But to your point, it is amazing how the radical left care about preserving the bureaucracy more than anything else.
But that's the other thing, too, is in a shutdown, correct me if I'm wrong, you're in a de facto balanced budget because you can't spend more than you take in. So is there a downside to just leaving the whole kit and caboodle shut down and say, all you non-essential people never come back to work?
Well, that's a great question. If somebody is non-essential, why do we need them? Right. They're not essential by definition.
Like you are essential to this show. That's why you are here.
But at the same time, unfortunately, we do have a lot of folks that we would consider essential that just aren't going to get paid. And so I, for one, don't want to, for example, see our great men and women in the military not get paid. So there are certainly
What about a single issue bill for that, though? Like that would certainly has to be palatable even for Democrats.
One would think, except what the Democrats want here, I think, is to hold hostage the folks in the military. They want to hold hostage air traffic controllers and all these other folks to force force them to work but not get paid. And it's part of the reason why I think, when this finally does get resolved, probably congressional staffers shouldn't get any kind of back pay.
Right. Or until some of those congressional members need to take a flight and they can't because air traffic controllers, like I said earlier, when it affects them. But to the back pay point, this is for all the time. They go home for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever. When Obama shut down the government for Obamacare, it was, I think, 17 days. They all went home, got a time off vacation. I know, I was in the military. And we came back and we all got back pay for not being at work anyway. That could change.
Exactly. And it probably should, because, again, in a lot of these instances, we're talking about workers, not all of them, but in a lot of these instances, we're talking about workers that, frankly, the Trump administration is trying to get rid of those positions anyway. We're trying to shrink the bureaucracy. We're trying to get down from the 3 million people working for the federal government. So, again, a lot of these things, I think, are actually steps in the right direction and are going to play right to the president's agenda.
Yeah, I mean, look, I have Ron Swanson on my belt buckle right now. So I'm convinced. Washington Post editorial board finally comes out and admits that Obamacare was a dumpster fire, and it was also known as the Affordable Care Act, which was neither affordable nor did it give adequate care to anybody. And I'm thinking, yes, you had the Inflation Reduction Act, which raised inflation. You had the Affordable Care Act, which didn't do that. You had the Immigration Reform Act that let 10 million people into the country illegally and drove up housing prices. These people are morons.
And what's really, really amazing with something like Obamacare is how, as the kids say, the math didn't math, right?
Yeah.
And you think about it, they had to expand payroll taxes. They had to federalize, really socialize the student loan program in order to take all that interest and throw it into pay for these different people's health care.
Didn't they have a website that spent like $1 billion that didn't work?
Yeah, there was that too. So, I mean, the whole thing was just botched from beginning to end. And right, it never paid for itself. It was always costing more than the Democrats alleged before they forced it through Congress through reconciliation.
Yeah, and then it was, I believe, tripled the prices for most people's premiums. All right, so if the government shut down, it's costing us all this money, and it's so bad, and the sky is falling, says Chicken Little. Why is Bitcoin and gold hit $4,000? Bitcoin hit an all-time high. Crypto is screaming, and I just drooled on myself because I'm so excited about this because I have crypto accounts. Why is all that doing so well with the stock market and everything?
It's a great question. I mean, part of the reason, if you're seeing asset classes everywhere go up, whether it's equities, like you mentioned, whether it's gold, Bitcoin, crypto, other cryptos, et cetera, you have to wonder, are those things going up in value or just up in price? In other words, the thing we're using to price them, is that going down in value?
The dollar.
Right, exactly. And not just the dollar, though, because we're seeing this kind of around the globe with a lot of different currencies. The other thing with gold in particular, though, is we've seen a lot of central banks, like our Federal Reserve. You have central banks across the world. A lot of them over the last couple of years have actually been hoarding gold for the first time in many, many years. So all that extra demand is, of course, putting upward pressure on prices.
Yeah. So I'm going to summarize this in your smart terms. What you're saying is move off the grid and farm alpacas.
get a bunch of chickens, right?
I'm here for that. EJ Antoni, appreciate you coming in, brother. All right, folks, we also have some breaking news from Capitol Hill. The U.S. Senate just confirmed 107 of President Trump's nominees in one single shebang. Among those confirmed are more than 24 ambassadors, more than a dozen U.S. attorneys, and the heads of agencies like Security and Exchange Commissions and the National Oceanic Atmosphere, or NOAA, I should say. This is huge. He doesn't stop. Coming up, Portland police and the county's DA office dropped their charges against conservative journalist Nick Sorter because they were BS. Maybe they should spend more time going after the actual criminals and freak shows and Antifa instead of arresting, I don't know, journalists. We got that more in the Culture Clash.
You know, everybody's reporting the same stories, the same spin. You turn the channel, it's always the same. But not us. We're different. We report the real news. No spin, just the facts. Turn to us, and you won't turn back.
Tune in to Rob Schmidt tonight on Newsmax.
You're careful about what you bring home when shopping, especially when it comes to feeding your family. Shouldn't your investments work the same way? At Timothy Plan, we offer a wide selection of mutual funds and ETFs that can help you allocate assets without compromising your values. From technology to healthcare, energy to real estate, our funds are not only diverse but uncompromising to your values. Timothy Plan funds are filtered to avoid companies involved in abortion, pornography, human trafficking, and other harmful agendas. What you invest in should reflect what you stand for. Are your investments bearing good fruit? What's in your portfolio? Contact your financial advisor today to find out, or contact Timothy Plan directly at 1-800-TIM-PLAN to discover more. Before investing, carefully consider the fund's investment objectives, risks, charges, and expenses of the investment company. This and other important information can be found in the fund's prospectus. To obtain a copy, visit timothyplan.com or call 800-846-7526. Read each prospectus carefully before investing. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal.
My name is Deanna Perrazzo, and I'm a professional wrestler. I want to use my spotlight to help T2T because my husband was a combat veteran. Helping vets is so important because they're often the most disregarded people in our society. And so to be able to say, like, we see you, we see the sacrifice, we see the struggle you go through to support us in our scariest moments, that deserves to be celebrated, that deserves to be honored. Please help by donating $11 a month at T2T.org. Let us do good.
Every day, bumps and bangs happen. Bruises are optional. Used daily, dermatologist-recommended Dermend Moisturizing Bruise Cream can help restore your skin's natural barrier and reduce the appearance of bruises. If you have mature skin and bruise easily, get Dermend Moisturizing Bruise Cream in the first aid aisle and get back to having way too much fun.
Consumer Cellular knows there are a lot of offers flying around, but they slip away too fast. We don't play games. What you see is what you get. Bet you're glad you wore cargo pants. See how we can cut your bill. Call Consumer Cellular.
How does the world's most trusted dog expert keep his own dogs so healthy?
Hi, I am Cesar Milan. In my 20 years rehabilitating dogs, I've seen too many struggle with health problems that no amount of training could fix. Then I discovered it wasn't the dog, it was their food. Fortunately, I found veterinarian Dr. Marty's anti-kibble breakthrough.
Nature's Blend is packed with whole foods that are freeze-dried, locking in nutrients.
I saw remarkable improvements in my dogs within weeks.
Try Dr. Marty risk-free for 90 days. Plus, get a free gift when you call or visit drmartypets.com/Caesar.
At Balsam Hill, we're crafting joy early this year. For a limited time during Balsam Hill Days, save up to 40% off plus free shipping on our beautifully designed lifelike Christmas trees, now made with more sustainable materials. Find your holiday spirit at balsamhill.com.
Jesus Christ came to take the muck out of you. Let me send you this free book, The Everlasting Gospel of Christ. This is absolutely free. We simply want you to know Jesus Christ.
Look here, Nick Sorter, friend of this show. Charges have been dropped on him because he didn't do anything wrong, but he was arrested by an overly zealous and biased politicalized police force in Oregon. This was after being ambushed by an Antifa mob last week. Conservative journalist Nick Sorter was arrested for, quote, disorderly conduct, kind of a catch-all. Well, last night, the county district attorney's office released a statement saying, after careful review of the investigation, including reports and video, we do not believe the crime of disorderly conduct can be proven against Mr. Sorter beyond a reasonable doubt. The other two individuals arrested for disorderly conduct on October 2nd have been charged. Now, Mr. Sorter responded by saying, hey, Portland Police Chief Day, check your inbox. We're far from done here, with a letter from his attorney attached saying the arrest was made without probable cause and was clearly in retaliation to his efforts to expose the truth about conditions and activity in Portland to the broader public. According to Mr. Sorter, hereby demands within 7 days of this letter issue a formal apology, announce the initiation of an internal investigation of the circumstances of this arrest, including involvement of supervisory or command personnel. I am here for accountability. Benj Irby, political commentator, K. Smythe, writer for KSmytheHill.com. K, it's about damn time.
It is about time. I wish that more people would start using, listen, this is one of the things that America does great. When things go wrong, you lawyer up and everything goes right again. Britain needs to take note. Britain is way worse than Portland in terms of just arresting anyone and everyone that they disagree with. I think that Nick could absolutely set a precedent here. And if we do have any sort of freedom of speech left back in the UK, which unfortunately I don't think we do, and not enough people out there use Twitter or X, but I really think that what he has the potential to do is revolutionary, not just for here in the United States on holding people accountable, but holding law enforcement accountable all over the developed world, where craziness like this has been allowed to proliferate, because it's not just Portland, it's Los Angeles, it's New York, it's basically every blue city and every borderline communist-run state back in Europe.
Oh, yeah,
So,
I mean, like, New York is even worse. There were a bunch of these Antifa freak shows on the train with me today. They had to let them off first because they were causing such a racket. But yesterday, Benj, we told you about Trump's feeling towards Fox News for putting on Democrat Senator Mark Kelly about health care. Take a listen to what Don Jr. had to say on the Chris Salcedo show last night here.
They want to show both sides. Now, they let someone go unfettered for hours talking about these things without anyone pushing back, without any resistance. They allow them to spew their narrative, which is, as we've seen for the last few years, all lies. But that's what happens when you have sort of a more rhino network. They want to be loved. They just want the power. They don't care. It's about clickbait. So they do that. So it's a shame to actually see that. Honestly, I don't watch it anymore because it is so ridiculous. They try so hard to be unbiased that they're actually biased towards conservatives at this point.
That's kind of the point. Like, what happened to just absolutely obliterating people in arguments?
I mean, you'd think. I mean, that's how it used to be back in the day.
That's what you
I'll
do.
say this. I mean, everybody knows that True MAGA watches Newsmax right here. This is where the True MAGA is. I mean, Donald Trump has had a lot of issues with Fox even since going back to 2020, the night that they called Arizona, early. So he's been saying things about them, and even when they fired Tucker Carlson. I know I stopped watching Fox a good year after that. So, I mean, I'm not surprised. But True MAGA's right here at Newsmax. This is where President Trump comes on. This is why Don Jr. comes on. The whole family comes on. And we're going to be obviously honest about, whatever he's doing, but his support's here.
Yeah, but the other thing, too, is, like, I've had Democrats on this program. I think Mark Kelly's been on this network, but we don't just let him sit there and run his mouth.
I mean, again, like Don Jr. said, they're trying to be loved. They're trying not to have that reputation because, you have the left saying, oh, well, Fox is in for Trump. They're all in for Trump. So they're trying to show we're not really in for Trump, but
Yeah, is what it is.
Where does that go?
All right, remember this lady, this Oregon Congresswoman, Maxine Dexter. Now, this gem. This is the lovely lady who said this.
I don't swear in public very well, but we have to Trump.
Oops. I mean, she's out at a Portland Not a Military Target concert leading a group of geriatrics in song singing This Land. Just roll this.
This land is my land.
Smoke weed every day. I mean, Kay, this is like, that's what I think about when I see this.
Yeah, this feels like a little bit like elder abuse. This is kind of breaking my heart. This is the sort of thing that I would, like if I had a family member that was roped into doing something like this, immediate intervention. Just be like, A, you can't embarrass the family like this. B, who's paying you to do it? Are they paying you? You should go on record and tell us that they're paying you, because this is like the actual future of the nation that we're talking about here. And then I don't know, it just kind of like breaks my heart. Like, we already sat through 4 years of Joe Biden and that just heinous ongoing elder abuse. We don't want to see it proliferated in our cities and on the local level, guys. Like, no one needs that kind of negativity.
I want to see the receipts for those mandolins. But here's some stuff that just writes itself, actually, Benj. Sorry, Chelsea Clinton, okay? Starting a podcast on misinformation. Now, she wrote, how many of us have looked in the latest headlines and thought, that can't be true? Starting tomorrow, I hope you will join me on my series of experts on my new podcast, That Can't Be True. Together, we will fact sort from fiction, especially on issues impacting our health. And I was thinking to myself, Benj, I got your first guess right here. Your mom, on why she had a server in her basement and what happened in Benghazi.
Absolutely. I got some guests we can fill out her week with. One would be Webb Hubbell, which would be Hillary's old law partner, who people say is actually her father because she looks more like him than Bill. Allegedly. That might be why, she let Bill go. Yeah, she might be why she let Bill go home with the whole Monica Lewinsky thing, because he might have owed her for that. Also, there's Danny Williams, who is Bill Clinton's alleged black son. Looks just like him. You guys can look him up right on the internet. Danny Williams. He'd be a great one. And also Huma Abedin, which is, her mother's best friend / protege, who was once married married to Mark Weiner, who had the whole, Anthony Weiner.
Yeah,
I'm sorry,
yeah.
Anthony Weiner with the whole pedo thing, and then now she's with George Soros' son. So I would love to know, what mayhem the Soroses have planned for us, and what are they funding?
This is all alleged, and we just want to ask the question.
We just want to ask questions. Just asking questions and noticing.
Yeah,
that's all.
because
asking questions, noticing.
Is that true? That's the name of our podcast, or something stupid like that. Whatever. Okay, Benj.
Y'all are not suicidal. Y'all are
I'm not
suicidal. Let's just push this. You're talking about the Clintons. You're making me sweat. No one is suicidal.
Got
okay,
it.
We just want to answer the question.
For the record. Okay, Benj, appreciate it as always. All right, today marks 2 years since the October 7th terror attack on Israel. But is peace in Gaza now within reach thanks to Donald Trump? Details next.
I'm Caden Ballas. I take Balance of Nature fruits and veggies supplements. I take it because it allows me to get the variety of 31 different fruits and vegetables you're not getting on a daily basis.
Get 40% off by using discount code FALLPRIME.
October 7th, 1,200 killed in Israel, 46 Americans, 250 taken hostage.
What happened here is a large-scale invasion. They entered Israel to kill anyone that they can.
Just shooting everyone like in a duck range.
We come back to the car, and there's 2 baby seats with hundreds of bullets.
And then she texted me, "I love you, you're everything." And she stopped answering.
In my kibbutz, we had a baby 9 months old that they murdered.
Hamas murdered my sister. When I buried her, I buried a part of myself.
I think Hamas would do it again. Raping women, beheading babies, killing innocent people.
As long as Hamas is over there, we're not gonna have peace no matter what we're gonna do.
Let's stand for freedom, not terror.
Thanks to Jointivia, I'm back in the swing of things. Wait, $70 for a refill?
You gotta try Single Care. Just look up your prescription, show the coupon at the pharmacy, and save.
See why more people are saving with Single Care.
Are you getting the most from your Medicare plan?
It's overwhelming, actually.
Really confusing. It was always a struggle for us trying to narrow it down.
With Matchfinder by eHealth, it's easy to see if you could get more coverage for less money. So we invited people to give it a try.
This is the first time I've been able to see the major plans side by side. Put your doctors in, put your prescriptions in.
I'd like to add a doctor. Oh, and there he is.
Yeah, that's a good deal right there.
I'm all about saving money.
See if you could get more for less with a new Medicare plan. Go to eHealth.com and try Matchfinder. Compare your current plan to new 2026 plans from the nation's top insurance companies. Enter your doctors and prescriptions and choose from plans ranked for you by cost, coverage, and satisfaction. Or call this number to compare plans with the help of an eHealth advisor. They're paid the same no matter which Medicare Advantage plan you choose.
Thanks for calling eHealth. How can I help you today?
One thing I'm looking for is lowering prescription costs.
Awesome. We can do this together. This looks like this is going to be pretty cost effective for your prescriptions. So you're saving money across the board while also increasing your benefits. What do you think?
All right, sounds good. Thank you. That was amazing. I mean, it's a great plan.
How was that?
It was easy.
And would you recommend this to other folks?
Heck yeah, if they're paying high prices like I am now. Well, let me tell you, go to these guys.
Call this number for your Medicare plan comparison or get started at eHealth.com. Either way, it's always a free service.
They weren't pushing just one plan. They're going to look for what's perfect for you.
It's going to save me close to about $400 or $500 a year. The Matchfinder, that's the greatest idea I've seen in a long time. The fact that it was free makes it a whole lot better.
Call 1-800-705-0863 to compare Medicare plans in your area or visit eHealth.com.
eHealth, your Medicare matchmaker.
We are very close to making a deal on the Middle East that will bring peace to the Middle East. After all of these years of millions and millions, tens of millions of people being killed, there's a chance to bring peace to the Middle East.
Now, this is on the 2-year mark of Hamas parachuting in and massacring a bunch of people at a music festival in Israel. President Trump is negotiating a historic peace deal. Look, the people of Gaza elected Hamas in 2007. This peace deal would make them not allow Hamas to govern anymore. So, but they elected them in 2007. And this is a state that can't even supply its own utilities, water, power, internet, whatever, because they're not smart, with an average IQ of 67 in the region, which in any modern nation is considered disabled. Trump is trying to make a complex peace deal with the same people who elected Hamas to run their government in the first place. And I'm like, I want Trump to succeed, but good luck. Also, be ready to bomb him back to the Stone Age. Host of Savage Nation, Michael Savage, these people, sir, have been kicked out of every nation they've ever settled in. Egypt, the neighbor, doesn't even want them back. They're not taking a single refugee. Can we trust them to stick to a peace deal?
Well, Carl, look what's going on in this country. You've got them and their fellow travelers, along with the American communists, marching against Israel and America. Imagine if after Pearl Harbor, if after December 7, 1941, Americans marching in the street, taking the side of Japan and attacking the dead American sailors, marching in the streets saying America is committing genocide by fighting Japan. Okay, these pro-Palestinian thugs and internal communist enemies, which is what they are, would have marched against America after Hiroshima.
Yeah, that's live right now, by the way, that you're seeing on the
I know that, and they would have called our B-29 pilots genocidal maniacs, fascists, etc. Carl, we're at war. We have an internal enemy engaged in a civil war in this country. It's the Red-Green Alliance. It's a nightmare for us to watch this in our own streets. These are the Nazis. This is Nazism. These are the fascists. They are a threat to our very survival. Every last one of them is an enemy that should be investigated. But this is not freedom of speech. This is pure, unadulterated fascism.
But, like, these people that you're seeing marching, this is live in New York City right now, by the way.
I understand. There's only one solution, the Intifada. The Intifada means killing every Jew in Israel. And they're marching in New York City?
Well, my bigger thing is, like, these people would kill me just the same as they would anybody else. I mean, that's the bigger issue here. Half these people don't have jobs, they don't take showers and stuff like that, and yet they're blocking off streets in New York on the anniversary of October 7th. It's like, you're not solving anything. Like, let's talk about moving to a place of resolution. How about?
But Carl, waiting in the wings is a front for the most dangerous organization in the world, if not in America, which is the Muslim Brotherhood, a man named Mamdani, the smiling Muslim killer, who is making believe he's a friend of everyone by offering them free everything. And the dummies on marijuana are all buying the ticket. They're all lining up to go to the parade, take from those who have and give it to those who do not.
Yeah.
And they're, of course, very dangerous, because if this happens, the city will collapse. The entire Northeast will collapse, sort of in an earthquake, in an implosion. The economy will collapse.
But also, like, Mamdani is the guy who's saying, like, he's going to arrest Bibi Netanyahu if he comes here to New York. Like, dude, there's like diplomatic immunity, and they're coming here on diplomatic ties. Like, you can't do that. Like, why is he so, like, out in left field on some of this stuff?
Well, we keep hearing Mossad is everywhere, and Mossad did this, Mossad did that. If that were true, Mamdani wouldn't be breathing today, as far as I'm concerned. By the mere dint of the fact that he's calling the Israelis fascists and murderers and killers, and he's able to do it without being hurt, proves that he's lying. Because if they were exactly what he's saying is, he wouldn't be breathing.
Yeah. I mean, if all the allegations out there happen to be true, which I don't think they are, I mean, this is the problem, though, is, you don't have to be pro-Israel or pro-Netanyahu or anything to understand that, like, there is a radical Islamic faction out there that, would basically do away with America, too.
Look, in my latest podcast, and for the last 3 to 6 months, I've been saying enough is enough. Netanyahu has to stop the Gaza incursion, invasion, or war. He needs to cordon it off, which they are now proposing. That's the peace plan. It's only about 3 miles wide, and they're going to go in about a mile deep and make it a no man's land and cut off the northern part of Gaza, make it part of Israel. I see all of that. It's exactly what makes sense that Trump is talking about. That's the peace plan. These people are still going to march, no matter what happens there, because they are the enemy within. No, this is not freedom of speech. This is taking the side of the enemy of civilization. Radical Islam did us on 9/11 what they'll do again unless we stand up to these maniacs right now.
I think you're onto something there. Michael Savage,
you fought them. Carl, I'm yelling, you're the one who was out there in the body armor, not me.
Yeah, fair point. We appreciate it very much, sir. Thank you.
Okay, well,
all right.
I can only say so much.
Yeah. Well, be sure to catch Savage Nation, where he says much more right here on Newsmax Sundays at 8 p.m. Coming up, Chicago's gun crimes not getting any better. Let's rewind back a decade, though, and see how bad it's gotten. We've got 2A Tuesday next.
It's about political
People deserve better fiscal.
It's terrible. Politics seeps into everything.
What do you mean? Talk about climate change or the economy or, of course, elections.
You can't find out what we should really expect to happen.
But of course you can.
Go to IBKR's Forecast Trader.
Put your money where your mouth is.
Oh, for the love
Hi, TVGD. Can you lower my monthly bill?
Nah, I can raise it.
You can what?
You'll see.
Save over $300 in your first year with 3 months free.
Mother Nature never takes a day off, and neither does LeafGuard. LeafGuard, the only seamless one-piece rainwater management system with a clog-free guarantee. In most cases, we can install LeafGuard in less than a day, and it comes with a lifetime transferable warranty. Call now for 10% off LeafGuard, a $100 Visa gift card with purchase, and a $50 gift card with estimate. Plus, call during this program for our double savings sale. Double your savings to 20% off a complete LeafGuard system. Double your bonus to a $200 Visa gift card with purchase. And if you call now, we'll double your free gift to a $100 gift card with estimate. And once you get LeafGuard, you'll have more time to go on vacation. Be one of the first 50 homeowners who call now will receive a vacation voucher with purchase of a complete LeafGuard system. Call now to take advantage of our double savings sale. Don't deal with those old gutters any longer. Call now for LeafGuard.
LeafGuard handled it great. We had an awful lot of rain the last couple of days, and we didn't get any clogs at all. All of the rain just went right down through the gutters. All the pine needles slid right off.
LeafGuard works so well that it's earned the Good Housekeeping seal 20 years in a row. Don't deal with those old gutters any longer. Call during this program and take advantage of our double savings sale. Double your savings to 20% off a complete LeafGuard system, and double your bonus to a $200 Visa gift card with purchase. And remember, with LeafGuard, the top's not a cover, it's part of the gutter, and it comes with a clog-free guarantee. And if you call now, we're going to double your free gift. Receive a $100 gift card with your in-home estimate. And the first 50 homeowners who call will receive a vacation voucher with LeafGuard purchase. Call now to take advantage of our double savings sale. Don't deal with those old gutters any longer. Call now for LeafGuard.
All right, 2A Tuesday, so let's do some gun stuff. In the past decade, over 32,000 people have been shot in Chicago. In 10 years. That's entire towns of America in some places. And Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson loves to put the blame on everyone else but the law enforcement in Chicago.
This president doesn't care about gun violence. If the Chicago Police Department had a fighting chance, we could end gun violence in Chicago. But as long as this president allows hundreds of thousands of guns to come into our city, we will always be fighting an uphill battle.
Really, Brandon? Because from where I see, gun violence has been a problem in Chicago even before Trump came into office. I mean, here's the breakdown, the numbers of shooting victims in the past decade from your Democrats-run city. 2016, when Trump took office, 4,300. 2017, 34. 2018, 28. 2019, 26. This went down during Trump's presidency. Went back up. Highest number ever was under Biden, 4,385 in a year, okay? 2025 are at 1,500, 30 of which came from this past weekend. Then when you look at that, highest numbers, like I said, were under Biden. So how about you apply the standard of just arrest the criminals? AWR Hawkins, Second Amendment columnist for Breitbart News, and Cam Edwards, editor and Bearing Arms and Second Amendment advocate. All right, Cam, guns might not be the problem.
I mean, listen, Carl, does the mayor forget that Chicago banned handguns,
right? From 1982 until 2010, when the Supreme Court struck down that handgun ban. Yes. Chicago was one of the most violent places in the country while they banned handguns. So no, it's not Donald Trump letting hundreds of thousands of firearms come into the city. You know, the clearance rate for non-fatal shootings in Chicago. Chicago Sun-Times reported this earlier this year. 6%. That means 94% of the time that someone gets shot and lives in Chicago, nobody gets arrested. You want to reduce violent crime? Start arresting these people. That'll do the trick.
Yeah, this is crazy. All right, AWR, this is like journalistic misconduct. Amazon, they were a little sneaky thing. Amazon Prime stripped 007 of his firearms in all of the cover shots and all the advertisement and stuff like this. And I'm thinking like, hey, maybe they should just send him into combat with a sternly worded rolled up letter from the UN and see if that rates.
Right. Yeah, it's ridiculous. And this anti-gun movement in Hollywood that we've seen for decades, it's just ridiculous. And now you see it at Amazon, and I can't figure it. I can't figure this any more than I can understand the mayor of Chicago trying now to, again, blame guns instead of saying, hey, we've been lax in law enforcement. We haven't done our job. And until he's serious about doing his job, nothing will happen. And that's really why Trump's going to have to step in.
Yeah. Well, you know, the left loves to go to Europe for their gun control. So let's just go over there, Cam, real quick. Firearm homicides in the U.S. are less than the heat-related deaths in Europe in a year. You know, because they don't use AC for whatever reason. In 2023, in America, 17,927 people died by firearm homicide, not suicide factor. In Europe, 175,000 people died, almost 10 times the amount, due to heat-related causes. And if you do the math, that's 157,000 more people died from not air conditioning rather than firearms in America. But if we switch the tables, if the left claims it's all about, you know, keeping people safe and alive, heart disease deaths versus firearm deaths in the U.S. in 2023, almost 1 million people died of heart disease, mostly due to poor diet that the left is also fighting RFK on, compared to only less than 18,000 from gun deaths. I mean, that's like 50 times more than gun deaths, yet they won't do a thing about people eating too many ho-hos.
I mean, listen, if it's ho-hos, if it's AC, right? And I mean, listen, you can also talk about, you know, the number of drug overdose deaths in the United States. Illegal drugs killing about 5 times as many Americans as all homicides, right? These are things that are already outlawed. Again, it goes back to who's committing these crimes, how do we put them behind bars, and leave the law-abiding citizens alone to exercise their Second Amendment rights. That's how we fight crime. That's how we make this country a safer place. We're seeing cities like even Baltimore, Maryland is doing that. The state's attorney there, Ivan Bates, just talked about they're going after recidivists. They're going after repeat violent offenders, making sure that they do at least 5 years in prison. That's smart. Now, Maryland has some terrible gun laws, but they're at least getting that part of it right.
But they may give us the AR-15 overturning ban from the Supreme Court. So thanks for that, Baltimore. Also, AWR, real quick, 15 seconds. You won an award this year for reporting on gun rights and Second Amendment issues. Just wanted to say congratulations, sir.
Oh, thank you. And thank you to the Second Amendment Foundation. What a great group. I was honored to get that award.
Yeah, no, that's great. Anybody who's protecting the Second Amendment is welcome on this show. So, Cam, AWR, always a pleasure.
Thanks, Carl.
All right. It's nice to have those guys back. Love some two-way stuff. All right, the media, big media, is already rewriting Charlie Kirk's murder, its meaning, and Charlie's impact on America. Dick Morris is countering these claims in a new book, The Real Charlie Kirk. Dick reveals Charlie's secret and important role in Trump's 2024 campaign and how Charlie revolutionized politics. And The Real Charlie Kirk is available at bookstores and Amazon, or check out the free offer from Newsmax. And before we go, a CNN smackdown for the ages. It was biblical. Those next.
The press won't report the real story.
The American people are actually very smart.
Ridiculous statements.
These guys are just plain weird.
Actual scandals.
Even the immunity decision. I mean, that decision was so misreported.
That's my job, and I aim to do it every night.
October 7th, 1,200 killed in Israel. 46 Americans, 250 taken hostage.
What happened here is a large-scale invasion. They entered Israel to kill anyone that they can.
Just shooting everyone like in a duck range.
We come back to the car, and there's 2 baby seats with hundreds of bullets.
And then she texted me, "I love you, you're everything." And she stopped answering.
In my kibbutz, we had a baby 9 months old.
that they murdered?
Hamas murdered my sister. When I buried her, I buried a part of myself.
I think Hamas would do it again. Raping women, beheading babies, killing innocent people.
As long as Hamas is over there, we're not gonna have peace no matter what we're gonna do.
Let's stand for freedom, not terror.
This October 5th to 7th, join us for the Flags of Fellowship. Show the world that Israel is not alone.
For a house of God to put the Israeli flag outside, it says we are willing to stand up, to stand with the state of Israel.
By participating in the Flags of Fellowship, we're going to be very clear and bold about our support for Israel.
This is the moment that you show a youth congregation, yes, you respect, support Israel. This is the moment.
This is the moment. They deserve the right to be who they are.
And the one way is the flag. And put it outside.
In Israel, when they see us raising those flags, they feel supported, but they also feel proud.
Tell the Jewish people in Israel and around the world that Christians in America stand with them. You can be part of this historic movement. Learn more by going to ifcj.org today.
The gold standard, reassuring, solid, steadfast. In these uncertain times, owning a 1-ounce gold eagle can be the difference between feeling secure or feeling unprepared. Obtain your strong and steady lifeline at the best price in the country from the most trusted source, Global Coin. Call 844-595-9599 now to add a 1-ounce gold eagle to your safety net.
Hi folks, I'd like to tell you about YRefi. Did you know that as an accredited investor, when you invest in YRefi, your interest rate is fixed? You can invest from 1 to 5 years, and you can spread your investment over those terms that best suit your needs. You also have the freedom to take your monthly interest income or reinvest it, whatever you choose. When you invest in YRefi, your interest is calculated daily, and you're paid monthly, and should you need your money back early, there is a liquidity feature. Would you like some more information? Just call 877-80-INVEST. That's 877-80-INVEST. Or log on to investYRefi.com. That's investYRefi.com. For complete details, make sure to review the private placement memorandum and scan this QR code to view the disclosures at your leisure. YRefi, investing in America's future.
This is how you smack down leftist media.
Is it the case that, as Pritzker frames it, you are profiling brown people, that this immigration crackdown is designed to go after people of color?
That is it's such a, oh, what a dumb question. We cannot have a system of law in this country that privileges illegal aliens over American citizens, and that's what they're doing. You know it, and I know it.
So that's not exactly a no, Stephen.
My full answer is no, that is a lie, and it's a dumb question.
It's like, first off, if you're going to shave your head, also shave your beard. Pick one. You can't have it the reverse. Like, I can't grow facial hair, so I don't shave my, I don't know. But Rob, this is one of those things, it was just like, dude, you're wrong, and that's also my answer.
Stephen Miller, he gets heated up when he goes on CNN. And you know what, to his credit, how often did you see, major members of the Biden administration on Fox? You didn't see it, or on Newsmax. You just didn't see it very often. So I mean, to their credit, they go in places where they're hated.
Yeah.
And they fight a good fight.
You look, you're coming against that guy, you better come with the facts.
That's exactly right.
Take it away, bro.
Oh, good to see you.